Okay, here's an article on 17 out of place artifacts or Ooparts that show you man's decoded history is not quite correct, or how did they put it? Suggest high tech prehistoric civilizations must have existed. And we're looking at the picture here, and we can see in Dendera the Dendera light bulb. And we'll go over each one of these things slightly and look at it. But then these beads that are known to have been real extremely old and have three grooves. Right, one looks like a Death Star, certain things, and they show that that's signs of grooving. There are acorn ones, there are certain ones, and it looks almost like somebody's marble collection that they have carved out of stone long ago, but the dating on that just blows people away. And there's the Antikythera mechanism, and this is an ancient Oriental earthquake detector that come out with. So let's take a look at this. According to the conventional view of history, humans have only walked the earth in our present form for some 200,000 years. And I'm going to start protesting every time I hear that, for we're finding 2.5 years ago now, almost three, Homo sapiens sapiens in Jebel Irhoud cave in northern Morocco, and it definitely shows that they're in what they call Homo sapiens sapiens. It's modern human. It used to be 200,000. It used to be 180. It used to be 130. But they keep finding things, and now it's 300. They actually carbon dated it at 315,000 BC, but I think they've got them knocking it down to just a straight flat 300. And what's odd about that is all these finds, and I've mentioned a few of them here recently, keep saying that exact same number. Like they can't find 315, or don't know the difference between 305 or 325 or 290. And they're just going to throw that one out there like it's a benchmark. And whenever something looks that old, they're just going to go, it's three then. Well, it comes out about almost 360, closer to four. It's three then. I don't know. It seems geared, but imagine how that's coming back whenever we were led to believe by conventional thought and interpretation of the Bible that 4000 BC, before that, there weren't any people. Right? That's what they came out with. But that's a misinterpretation in the way of writing. And I've shown you a lot of the truth and the reality of that directly from the Bible, but also in reality and places that were talked about in the Bible, and who a lot of the Bible stories are about, for you can tell. Advanced civilization appeared several thousand years ago, but much of the mechanical ingenuity we know in modern times began to develop only in the Industrial Revolution a couple of hundred years ago. Or that's what people thought. And I could go off right now again, too, but I'll get to a few things whenever we get to stuff that's similar and makes me rethink it. Ooparts, or out of place artifacts, is a term applied to dozens of prehistoric objects found around various places in the world that seem to show a level of technology advancement that is incongruous or not normal with the times in which they were made. Many scientists attempt to explain them using natural phenomena. Others say such explanations ignore the mounting evidence that prehistoric civilizations possessed advanced technological knowledge that was lost through the ages and only to be redeveloped in modern times. We look at a variety of Ooparts here, ranging in purported origin from millions of years ago to merely hundreds of years ago, but all said to show advancement well ahead of their time. We do not claim that all or any of these Ooparts are definitive evidence of advanced prehistoric civilizations, but rather attempt to provide a brief glimpse at what's known or hypothesized about these artifacts. This is not a comprehensive list of all our Ooparts, but it's a substantial sampling. One thing, I don't know if it's down on the bottom of the list somehow. They have 17, and I've only seen 5 pictures. I'm going at this raw. But I wonder if they're going to show such things as... Well, let's just go. Number 17. 2,000 years old and more Baghdad batteries, which has got the little seal inside of it, and it creates current. And they come up with the idea, well, they must have been electroplating and stuff like that. Clay jars with asphalt stoppers and iron rods made some 2,000 years ago, have been proven capable of generating more than a volt of electricity, and you can hook them up in series and do stuff with them. There's a guy on YouTube here that made a bunch of fake ones and used wine and everything in it, and ended up charging his phone off of it. These ancient batteries were found German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig in 1938 just outside of Baghdad, Iraq. So back in Sumeria, the batteries have always attracted interest as curios. Dr. Paul Craddock, a metallurgy expert at the British Museum, told the BBC in 2003 they are one-offs, unique, as far as we know. Nobody else has found anything like this. They are odd things. They are one of life's enigmas. But when they look at the way that it was built and the coil around it and everything, it looked like that there had been some thought going into it, and I'm not willing to believe that that was the only one and the first one that was ever built. Here's the story about the Dendera light bulb right here, and it shows you this flower, but the flower stem doesn't just stop down here. It goes all the way over and plugs into this box, and this box has got something to do with it. And then there's this stand right here. It's a jed pillar, and on it is all these little stanchions. And whenever I was a kid, whenever I first saw this, the instant thought in my mind was those things you see on telephone poles and transformers that delegated out, and it looks like they've done something along that line there too. And you can misconstrue a bunch of stuff. The conventional thought is that he's spreading out a smell among the kids. He came in with some flowers and they smelled it. But isn't this an odd depiction of he came in with flowers and the kids smelt it? A relief beneath the temple of Hathor at Dendera, Egypt, depicts figures standing around a large light bulb-like object. Eric von Daniken, who wrote The Chariot of the Gods back in the day, created a model of the bulb which works when connected to a power source, emitting an eerie purplish light. They've got another one at a museum that actually tries to put on a neon-type light, and they made it look like a snake, and then supposedly it runs off of the Baghdad battery concept, but it's been multiplied. It's not really just urns and shit. But oh no, they're going to pull off something here local to me. The Great Wall of Texas, are known as rock wall. This is a historic photo of the wall found in Rockwall, Texas, and this is only a small piece of it, and it goes down and into it, and there's turns and corners, and it does all this stuff, and there's windows and alcoves and places to put stuff and things, and it runs all the way around the ancient city of Rockwall, and the giant flood of Lake Ray Hubbard that we have there, that's built into covering up more than half of it, has drowned it out to where it doesn't exist. And it's not all the same size. It goes up and down hills and around areas, kind of following the ridge line a little bit in quite a few places. Part of it is even known in being in downtown. In 1852, in what is now known as Rockwall County, Texas, farmers digging in a well discovered what appeared to be ancient rock wall, estimated to be some 200 to 400,000 years old. Some say it's a natural formation, while others say it's clearly man-made. And it would be odd for somehow there to be a geographic formation and it would show up, and then it would show up these cracks, especially when there's no fault line on it or anything. You could say a fault line cracked right above it. It might crack some rocks, but that's not what we're looking at all. In fact, the rock on the left and right of it is different slightly, and then it's all been put and placed up there, it looks like, and it's just quite conspicuous, but they've been told to write it off as natural. You can find shale and rocks that do break up like this, but for it to be a 10-foot wall that pretty much runs for 14 miles or whatever, and circumference is an ancient or a city that showed up later on us, encompass that same area, would be an oddity, wouldn't it? John Greisman at the University of Texas, UT in Dallas, tested the rocks as part of a History Channel documentary. He found that they were all magnetized the same way, suggesting that they formed where they are and were not moved to that site from elsewhere. But some remain unconvinced by this single TV show test and ask for further studies, because those were lined up, but those are lined up. But it comes over here and it turns around a corner, so now they'd be lined up differently. It wouldn't be down the grain, it would be, wouldn't it? Did they do it? No, they didn't do any of that. So all they did was test ones that are lined up to see if they were lined up, and they were lined up. Geologist James Shelton and a Harvard-trained architect John Lindsay have noted elements that seem to be of architectural design, including archways, lintelled portals, and square openings that resemble windows. And if you'll look in my search my deal up there for rock wall, it should show you that, and it's listed in there. 1.8 billion year old nuclear reactor. What? Nuclear reactor site in Gabon Republic. In 1972, a French factory imported uranium ore from Oklo. In Africa's Gabon Republic, the uranium had already been extracted. They found the site of origin to have been apparently functioned as a large-scale nuclear reactor that came into being 1.8 billion years ago and was in operation for some 500,000 years. It'd be hard to fathom the fact that enough nuclear stuff got together and it started self-reacting somehow, and then it did so. It kept itself in reaction for some 500,000 years without totally exploding and just going rampant. You know, it takes extreme control for us to do that with these rods that are dulled down and all this stuff. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's the first I've really heard about it. Dr. Glenn T. Seaborg, former head of the United States Atomic Energy Commission and Nobel Prize winner for his work in the synthesis of heavy elements, explained why he believes it wasn't a natural phenomenon, and thus must be a man-made nuclear reactor for uranium to burn in a reaction. Very precise conditions are needed. That's what I said. The water must be extremely pure for one, much purer than it exists naturally. It's got to be pretty much reverse osmosis water, basically hydrogen and oxygen. And then they use hard water. The material U-235 is necessary for nuclear fission to occur, and this is one of the isotopes found naturally in uranium. Several specialists in reactor engineering have said they believe the uranium in Oklo could not have been rich enough in U-235 for a reaction to take place naturally. Well, that's an odd one. I'd like to hear more about that. And so many years ago, I guess from the half-life of its decay of part of it. So here's the ancient Piri Reis map, and it looks like it's Piri Reis. Seafaring map makers before Antarctica was discovered in ice, and it shows the Brazil and coming on down, but then it shows it's somewhat connected to Antarctica, right here at the bottom of the fault. Well, people have argued that, well, it doesn't even show it right, that this would come down here, would actually be right about here, and then Antarctica would be down off here, you know, and stuff. Well, hey, nobody's saying these maps are fantastic, and nobody's saying there's a cow that's that big. What they are saying is there's a map here that dates well before people even went around the Cape and saw it in these ships they're showing here, and it shows areas that nobody knew about fairly accurately. And he says he got it from old source maps. It's a map created by Turkish admiral and cartographer Piri Reis in 1513, but sourced from various earlier maps. At this 1513 date, no one had explored enough to find this Amazon and all these things going on and to have wrote it. He said it was sourced from earlier maps and is thought by some to depict Antarctica as it was in a very remote age before it was covered with ice. A landmass is shown to jut out from the southern coastline of South America. Captain Lorenzo Burrows, a U.S. Air Force captain in the cartographic section, wrote a letter to Dr. Charles Hapgood in 1961 saying that this landmass seems accurately show Antarctica's coast as it is under the ice. If I remember this portion of the story, they had taken radar and used it to find out what part are the landmass under the ice of Antarctica so they could do investigations and stuff, which everybody's real leery about, and Project this and all those things. Paperclip, people talk about, and so on. But in reality, he says here, well, it doesn't look like it looks now, but if you took all the ice off of it, it pretty much looks like that. Now, when was it last not covered with ice and everything? And that's just a hard question. people have made assumptions out of it, but Hapgood was one of the first to publicly suggest Piri Reis's map depicts Antarctica during a prehistoric time. He was a Harvard-educated historian who wrote theories about geological shifts, earned the admiration of Albert Einstein himself. He hypothesized that the landmass has shifted, explaining why Antarctica is shown as connected to South America. Entirely possible. But you need to really study it, but they have done some studies, and that corner of it, and I forget exactly what the name of that sound is in that area that they went, but that has remnants of pollen and everything that's of the mainland over there, hundreds of miles away now. Modern studies refute Hapgood's theory that such shift could have taken place within thousands of years, but they show that it could have happened within millions of years. And so what does that say about it? Here's an earthquake detector. And so it has these little balls in their mouth. They could fall out pretty easy if shaken. It's made it like a rattle, but it would drop that ball into a frog's mouth, and supposedly, in possibility, it would detect which way it came from and so on. So you say it's an earthquake detector and everything. It's going to tell you when something seismic goes off. Most people can recognize this, but this is a little detector, and said to be from 220 AD, Zhang Heng. In 132 AD, Zhang Heng created the world's first seismoscope. How exactly it works remains a mystery, but replicas have worked with a precision comparable to modern instruments. In 138 AD, it correctly indicated that an earthquake occurred about 300 miles west of Luoyang, the capital city. No one had felt the quake in Luoyang and to miss the warning until a messenger arrived days later requesting aid. I did a recent video about this right here, and I'm fixing to do another one because there's another follow-up for it. This is 150,000-year-old iron pipes found in China. Bangong Cave. Here's one of them where it goes down through. Somebody's rubbed their finger in it and got it to kick up the silt that's in there. And it's all around this area, and there's supposed to be a pyramid near here too, by the way, but there's also this standing stone circles that are here, and you can tell that they've been propped up and all this thing about it too. So caves near Mount Baigong, and you can't find that in Google Earth, in China, contain pipes leading to a nearby lake. They were dated by Beijing Institute of Geology at about 150,000 years ago, according to Brian Dunning of Skeptoid.com. That may be what the other article is that I'm talking about. State-run media Ixuna reported that the pipes were analyzed at a local smeltery, and 8% of the material could not be identified as any known element, it seems. Jin Jiegong, a geology fellow from the China Earthquake Administration, told state-run newspaper People Daily in 2007 that some of the pipes were found to be highly radioactive. It's another oddity. Jiendong said iron-rich magma may have risen up deep in the earth, bringing the iron into fissures where it may have solidified into tubes. So it would come up and burp into a tube and then back down, and that would leave a coating. Like whenever you take a mold and you pour the slip in it to make pottery, you know, like they do whenever they're doing modern pottery and stuff, and they pour it in there, shake it around, and then pour it out, and it leaves that coating of mud. You let that totally dry, crack it open, and you've got this thinner type example of it. So it would have done something along that line, they say. But what's weird about that too is there's just hundreds of them, and some of them are as small as the lead on a pencil, they say, all the way up to pencil size, finger size, and so on, and a bunch of uniform ones that appear about 4 inches in diameter to 6 inches in diameter. Some huge ones in some part. There's part of a wall where a piece just comes sticking out of the wall. What? It also goes near a salt lake in one area and near a freshwater lake in another area too, and they're like, what was going on here? And everybody, and it's China, so we'll never know. We'll sure try though. Antikythera mechanism, and this is something that's an oddity for sure. It's a 2,000-year-old mechanical device used to calculate the positions of the sun, the moon, planets, and even the dates of the ancient Olympic Games, among other things, and be kind of a zodiacal concept too. And Other than that, it appears to have been able to be used in navigation. A mechanism often referred to as an ancient computer that was built by Greeks around 150 BC was able to calculate astronomical changes with great precision. If it hadn't been discovered, no one would possibly believe that it could exist because it's so sophisticated, said mathematician Tony Freeth in Nova documentary. Matthias Boutet, director of research and development for watchmaker Hublot, said that in a video released by the Hellenic Republic Ministry of Culture and Tourism, that this Antikythera mechanism includes ingenious features which are not found even in modern watchmaking. What? Yeah, it's a series of cogs, and small ones and big ones, with certain amount of teeth, and due to the way this one rolls, that one rolls, and this one rolls, and it's, the oddity there is that it is a correlation of time that rolls around, and they've made recreations of this, and it's kind of odd. Here, I'll mention something offhand here that's not going to be in here too. They had figured out steam and steam-powered engines and how to utilize water extremely well back then. They had ancient um, temple doors that whenever you went up and you put your thing in, that it opened the door for you and stuff off of the simple mechanisms and things they had going. It rolled the door open, and this was used to say that it was magic, that the gods were with us, and all these type of things that are there. They had a steam-powered engine, and really it looked like they're with that Antikythera and this steam thing and everything else. They were on the edge of the Industrial Revolution 2,000 years ago, and something killed it all. Well, Greece fell out of favor real quick. Here come the Romans and and you just didn't, and then it just became a bunch of ruins everybody marvels over. Nothing new. There's a drill bit that they found in coal. John Buchanan, Esquire, presented a mysterious object meeting in the Society of Antiquaries in Scotland on December 13th, 1852. A drill bit. It had been found encapsulated in coal about 22 inches thick, buried in a bed of clay mixed with boulders about 7 feet thick. The Earth's coal is said to have formed hundreds of millions of years ago. The Society decided that the instrument was of modern level of advancement, but it concluded that the iron instrument might have been part of a borer broken during some former search for coal. But Buchanan's detailed report did not include any signs that the coal surrounding the instrument had ever been punctured by drilling. And there's another one where there's this wheel that they found. There's this coal miners that went in the coal shaft and they're working in this giant coal area. And as they're working this one side area, they hit something that's hard, so they kind of go around it a little bit and realize, oh, it's kind of round. That looks kind of metal. Oh my God, it's a wheel-looking thing stuck in a coal bed that's hundreds of feet below the earth, and what the hell is this? Things like that throw my whole idea I have going on off too. It just puts a whole nother spin on it. Here are those 2.8 billion euro spheres, and some of them are only a couple of 100,000 years ago, from what I've heard, all the way to being 2.8 billion years ago. They're known as the Kleersdorp spheres, found in pyrrolite or wonderstone deposits near Oddsdal, South Africa. Top right to bottom left, similar objects are known as Moki marbles from the Navajo sandstone of southeast Utah. Spheres with fine grooves around them found in mines in South Africa have been said to be naturally formed masses of mineral matter. Others have said they were precisely shaped by a prehistoric human hand. The globes, which have fibrous structure on the inside with a shell around it, are very hard and cannot be scratched even by steel. Curator of the Museum of Kleersdorp, South Africa. According to Michael Cremo's book Forbidden Archaeology, The Hidden History of the Human Race, Mark said the spheres are about 2.8 billion years ago. If they are mineral masses, it's unclear exactly how they formed. The iron pillar of Delhi, it's a special iron and it does not rust. Inscription from about 400 AD by King Chandragupta II on the iron pillar of Delphi. This is in India, the Aryans. This pillar is at least 15 100 years old, but could be older. It remains rust-free and is an astounding purity. It is 99.72% iron, according to Professor Gupta, head of the Department of Applied Sciences and Humanities of the Institute of Technology and Management in India. In modern times, wrought iron has been made with a purity of 99.8%, but it contains manganese and sulfur, two ingredients that are absent in the pillar that cause oxidation in things. So how did they get it to that point? And the answer is it was all made out of meteorite that did not contain these two things. It was made at least 400 years before the largest known foundry of the world could have even produced it, said John Rowlett in a study of craftsmen in ancient medieval civilizations. Show the influence of their training in a present-day method, trade education. Where are we at? 25 minutes? Not bad. Viking sword of Ooparts, and I did a video about these ancient swords that have been found, and the sword of ancients. And it's kind of like in Conan, whenever he goes down into the pit and he finds the Atlantean sword, what they call that. That Atlantean is somebody bigger than Conan with red hair. Whenever he starts fighting in that battle against those people, those are huge dudes. There's that red-haired guy. There's a cult of the snake that goes along with it. What time do you think they're talking about whenever it starts out talking about the sons of Aries? When archaeologists found the Vikings sold Ooparts dating from 800 to 1000 AD, they were stunned. They couldn't see how the technology made such a sword could have been available until the Industrial Revolution 800 years later. It's just an incredibly fine, and then we have the Damascus steel and all that. Its carbon content is 3 times higher than other swords of its time, and impurities were removed to such a degree that the iron ore must have been heated at least 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. With great effort and precision, modern blacksmith Richard Fuhrer of Wisconsin forges a sword of Ooparts quality using technology that would have been available in the Middle Ages. He said that it was the most complicated thing he had ever made, and he used methods not known to have been used by the people of that time. So he did some cheating or whatever, but he pulled it off kind of with their technology-ish. 100-million-year-old hammer. A hammer was found in London, Texas. Again, we have stuff down here in Texas. In 1934, encased in stone that had formed around it. The rock surrounding the hammer is said to be more than 100 million years old. The rock is. So how the hell do they have a hammer inside of it? Glenn Cuban, a vocal skeptic of claims the hammer was made millions of years ago, said the stone may contain minerals that are not more than 100 million years old, but it doesn't mean the rock formed around the hammer so long ago. Well, what are you going to do? Make molten rock and then pour it around it and then chip it out so it goes back from the burnt edge and then wear it away and rock and river crap until it looks like it does? And why are you doing all that? Some limestone is formed around the artifacts known to be from the 20th century, so concretions can form fairly quickly around objects, he said. Concretions are masses of hardened mineral material. Carl Baugh, who is in possession of the artifact, said that the wooden handle is turned to coal, evidence of its great age, and that the metal in it's made has a strange composition. Critics have called for more independent testing to verify these claims, but so far no such testing has been conducted. Wonder if it's meteorific. Workers at a stone quarry near Ain-en-Provence in France in the 18th century came across tools stuck in a layer of limestone 50 feet under the ground as they were working in a quarry. The find was recorded in the American Journal of Science and Arts in 1820 by T.D. Porter, who was translating Count Bernard's work on mineralogy. The wooden instruments had turned into agate, a hard stone, so like basically they petrified. Porter wrote, everything tended to prove that this work had been executed upon the spot where the traces existed. The presence of a man had then proceeded from the formation of this stone, and that very considerably, since he was already arrived in such a degree of civilization that the arts were known to him, and that he wrought the stone and formed columns out of it. We're going to do a part 2.